Have you ever noticed that in the animal kingdom, the most dangerous predators don't growl? The lion only roars when it wants to be seen, but it hunts in total, crushing silence. Humans are the only species that confuse noise with power. We live in a world where we are taught that the person who speaks the loudest, reacts the fastest, and defends themselves the most aggressively is the one in control. But this is a carefully constructed illusion. In reality, the person who speaks the most is the easiest to map. Every word they utter is a data point. Every defensive explanation is a reveal of a hidden insecurity. Every angry outburst is a map of their triggers. Most people spend their lives being readable. When someone attacks their character, they immediately rush to defend it. When someone questions their competence, they provide a list of their achievements. They are like open books. And dirty players, the manipulators, the corporate saboteurs, the social architects, are expert readers. They don't need to overpower you. They just need to provoke you. The moment you react, you have handed them the remote control to your emotions. You are no longer acting. You are merely responding to the rhythm they have set for you. You are playing their game, on their board, by their rules. But what if you stopped playing? What if, instead of fighting fire with fire, you fought it with a vacuum? This is the foundation of the echo trap. It is a psychological framework that reverses the flow of power. Silence is power. Advice tells you to be quiet so you don't get in trouble. That is defensive. The echo trap is different. It is an offensive strategy. It is the art of becoming a psychological mirror. It is about understanding a fundamental truth of human nature. People are terrified of an empty space. When you create a void, the other person's ego will feel an uncontrollable urge to fill it. And in that rush to fill the silence, they will do the one thing they never intended to do. They will expose themselves. The echo trap is not about being a victim who has nothing to say. It is about being a strategist who says exactly enough to make the other person say too much. It is the ability to stay perfectly still while the person across from you begins to unravel, simply because they cannot find their reflection in your eyes. They expect a storm. They expect resistance. They expect you to plead your case. When you give them none of that, the pressure they were trying to apply to you has nowhere to go. It has no target. It eventually bounces back and begins to crush the person who created it. By the end of this masterclass, you will understand that your reputation is not something you protect with words. It is something you protect with your presence. You will learn how to turn a manipulator's own momentum into their executioner. You are about to become unmappable. To master the echo trap, you must first understand the biology of the person you are facing. A dirty player is not necessarily a genius. They are a specialist in human feedback. Whether they are a manipulative colleague, a narcissistic partner, or a social rival, they operate on a principle known as sonar psychology. Just as a submarine sends out a pulse of sound to locate objects in the dark, a manipulator sends out emotional pulses, insults, subtle digs, false urgency, or manufactured guilt to locate your insecurities. They are looking for a ping. If they say something dismissive about your work, and you immediately explain your process, they have found a nerve. If they ignore your message, and you send 3 follow-ups, they have found a pressure point. The dirty player depends entirely on your reaction to navigate the interaction. Without your emotional feedback, they are essentially flying blind. Most people believe that these individuals are confident, but the opposite is true. Their power is parasitic. It requires a host. They need your frustration to feel superior. They need your anger to frame you as unstable. They need your defense to feel like the judge. This is the reward system of manipulation. Every time you engage in the argument they started, you are paying them in the currency of attention. You are validating their relevance. Even if you win the argument, they have won the interaction because they dictated how you spent your energy. This is where their predictability becomes their greatest weakness. Because they are addicted to the ping, they become highly rhythmic. They expect a specific cause and effect. If they apply pressure, you should move. If they create doubt, you should hesitate. This predictability makes them easy to map for a trained observer. While they think they are studying you, you are actually studying their patterns. You begin to notice that their aggression is usually a cover for a specific fear, the fear of being ignored, the fear of being seen as incompetent, or the fear of losing control over the narrative. When you understand that their power is actually a desperate need for a reaction, the game changes. You realize that you have been holding the keys to their prison all along. A manipulator cannot gaslight someone who does not argue back. They cannot pressure someone who does not acknowledge the deadline. They cannot belittle someone who treats their insults like background noise. They are players who have mastered a game that requires two people to play. The moment you stop being a player and start being a witness, their strategy begins to stall. They are like a car spinning its tires in the mud. The harder they press the accelerator, the more they provoke. The deeper they sink into the void you have created. You aren't just observing them. You are watching a machine break down because it ran out of fuel. The first active phase of the echo trap is the creation of the information vacuum. In physics, a vacuum is a space entirely devoid of matter, and its nature is to suck everything nearby into its center. In psychology, a silence that lasts a few seconds longer than expected creates the same effect. It creates a tension so thick that the human brain will do almost anything to break it. Most people are reactive talkers. They speak to avoid the discomfort of silence. The strategist, however, uses that discomfort as a surgical tool. This phase is about transitioning from being a listener to becoming a gravitational force that pulls the truth out of the manipulator. The primary technique here is what I call the 3-second lag. When a manipulator finishes a sentence, especially one designed to provoke or pressure you, do not respond immediately. Instead, maintain steady, neutral eye contact and count to 3 in your head. During these 3 seconds, do not nod, do not frown, and do not look away. This is the ocular lock. By refusing to provide a facial reaction, you are withholding the ping they are desperate for. In those 3 seconds, the manipulator's mind begins to race. They start wondering, did I go too far? Did they see through me? Why aren't they defending themselves? Their confidence is built on the expectation of your resistance. When that resistance is absent, their internal rhythm breaks. This vacuum leads to a phenomenon known as information leakage. Because they are uncomfortable with the silence you've created, they will feel a subconscious urge to fix the situation. They will start to over-explain their original point. They might say, "What I meant was," or "Don't take it the wrong way," but each of these sentences is a confession. They are revealing their own anxiety and their own awareness that their behavior was out of line. While they are talking, you are not just listening. You are collecting data. You are watching for the micro-expressions, the darting eyes, the fidgeting hands that only appear when a person feels they have lost the lead in a conversation. The information vacuum turns the conversation into a one-way mirror. They can see themselves struggling, but they cannot see you. By the time the 3 seconds are up, the power dynamic has already shifted. You haven't said a single word, yet you have forced them to justify their existence to you. You are now the judge, and they are the defendant. This is the beauty of the vacuum. It requires zero aggression. You aren't attacking them, you are simply refusing to help them. You are letting the natural human fear of the unknown do the work for you. In this silence, the manipulator's mask begins to itch. They feel the need to adjust it, and in that adjustment, the mask always slips. You are now ready to move from the vacuum to the mirror. Once the vacuum has unsettled the manipulator, you move into the most sophisticated part of the framework, tactical mirroring. If the vacuum is the absence of sound, the mirror is the strategic reflection of it. In this phase, you are not providing your own thoughts, your own feelings, or your own arguments. Instead, you are taking the manipulator's own words and handing them back like a cold, heavy object. This is where the echo in the echo trap truly begins to resonate. It is a form of reverse interrogation that forces the dirty player to confront the absurdity or the malice of their own statements without you ever having to label them as such. The core technique is the neutral echo. When a manipulator makes a loaded statement, something meant to gaslight you or push you into a corner, pick the most critical 2 or 3 words they used and repeat them back as a calm, curious question. For example, if they say, "You're being incredibly difficult and slowing down the whole project," you don't defend your pace. You don't explain the hurdles. You simply look at them and say, "difficult and slowing things down." Then you stop. You return to the vacuum. You have just forced them to explain their insult. Because you haven't attacked them, they have no fire to fight. They are forced to provide evidence for a claim that was likely based on emotion rather than fact. This creates the justification trap. Most manipulation relies on the victim accepting the frame of the manipulator. By echoing their words, you refuse to enter their frame. Instead, you place their words under a microscope. As they try to justify their statement, they will inevitably start to oversell. They will add unnecessary details. They will stumble over their logic, and they will often end up contradicting themselves. The more they talk, the more they realize how weak their position actually is. They are essentially digging a hole, and by echoing them, you are simply handing them a larger shovel. You are letting their own voice become the loudest thing in the room, which makes their aggression look like desperation. The beauty of tactical mirroring is that it protects your information sovereignty. You are giving away nothing. They still don't know if you're angry, if you're hurt, or if you're planning a counter move. This strategic ambiguity is agonizing for a manipulator. They need to know your emotional temperature to know if their tactic is working. By echoing them neutrally, you keep your temperature at zero. You are a smooth, polished surface that reflects everything and absorbs nothing. Eventually, the manipulator will exhaust themselves against their own reflection. They will realize that every time they throw a punch at you, they are effectively hitting themselves. You aren't just winning the conversation. You are dismantling their psychological machinery piece by piece, using nothing but the echoes of their own voice. To understand the echo trap in its full, lethal potential, we must see it applied in a high-stakes environment. Imagine a professional setting, a boardroom where the architect, a senior strategist known for his composure, is being targeted by a colleague we will call Marcus. Marcus is a classic dirty player, high energy, charismatic, but deeply insecure. He uses a tactic called the public undermine. In the middle of a critical presentation, Marcus interrupts the architect. He doesn't ask a question. He makes a dismissive comment disguised as a joke. This plan is interesting, but it feels a bit academic. Do you actually have a grasp on the real-world costs? Or are we just playing with spreadsheets today? The room goes silent. This is the moment where most people fail. A typical person would get defensive, pulling out budget reports to prove their competence. But the moment you prove yourself to a manipulator, you have lost, because you have accepted the role of a student being graded by them. The architect does not do this. He employs the echo trap. First, he utilizes the information vacuum. He stops talking, sets his pen down slowly, and looks Marcus directly in the eyes. He says nothing for 3 full seconds. The joke that felt funny a moment ago now starts to feel like a stain in the air. The silence forces the audience to weigh Marcus's words, and without the architect's reaction to mask it, the comment sounds unprofessional. Then, the architect uses tactical mirroring. With a voice as calm as still water, he says, playing with spreadsheets. He doesn't say it with anger. He says it with the genuine curiosity of a scientist observing a strange insect. Marcus, feeling the pressure of the vacuum and the eyes of the executives, begins to fidget. He realizes he has to justify the insult. Well, I just mean that, sometimes these numbers don't reflect the chaos on the ground. We need practical solutions, not just theories. Marcus is now over-explaining. Information leakage has begun. He is trying to walk back the aggression of his joke, because the architect didn't give him a ping to bounce off of. The architect waits another 2 seconds. He then adds one more echo, the chaos on the ground. Marcus is now trapped. He has to explain the chaos, but since there is no actual chaos, he begins to ramble about minor logistical issues that have nothing to do with the presentation. He is talking himself into a corner. The executives in the room, who were originally focused on the architect, are now looking at Marcus with confusion and slight annoyance. Marcus has successfully destroyed his own reputation for being a leader. He looks frantic, while the architect looks like a mountain. By doing almost nothing, the architect has exposed Marcus's incompetence and his malice. The echo didn't just reveal Marcus's lie, it made the room realize that Marcus was the only one playing games. The final phase of the echo trap is the checkmate. This is the moment where you move from the interaction itself to the social and reputational conclusion. A manipulator's power depends on their mask, the public persona of being the smart one, the victim, or the leader. The goal of the checkmate is not to tear that mask off yourself, but to create the conditions where the manipulator is forced to tear it off in front of everyone. This is achieved through the social witness effect. In a 3,000-word deep dive into power, this is the most critical realization. Your greatest ally is the audience watching the conflict. When you use the echo trap correctly, you create a sharp contrast in emotional temperature. The manipulator is high temperature. They are frantic, aggressive, or passive-aggressive. You are zero temperature. You are still, calm, and observant to the people watching, your boss, your friends, your family. The person who is talking the most and reacting the most emotionally appears to be the one losing. By refusing to engage in the mud-slinging, you position yourself as the only adult in the room. The checkmate happens when the manipulator realizes they have lost the audience. They will often have a breakout moment, a final, desperate attempt to get a reaction out of you. They might get louder, or they might make a personal attack. At this exact moment, you apply the final silence. This is a pause that lasts 5 to 7 seconds. It is the longest and most expensive pause in the framework. You simply look at them, let their final, desperate words hang in the air for everyone to hear. And then you do something they don't expect. You nod once, very slightly, and look back at your work or the person you were originally speaking to. You don't respond to the insult. You don't correct the lie. You treat their outburst like a minor technical glitch that has now been resolved. This is the ultimate reputation kill. You have signaled to everyone present that the manipulator's words are so irrelevant that they don't even deserve a rebuttal. This is the checkmate because it leaves the manipulator with nowhere to go. If they continue to shout, they look unhinged. If they stop, they look defeated. Their reputation for being a strategic player is replaced by a reputation for being difficult. Because you never attacked them, they cannot play the victim. They cannot go to others and say, "Look what they said to me," because you said almost nothing. You have successfully deleted their influence without leaving a single fingerprint on the weapon. The echo has finally finished its work. You have won the war by refusing to show up to the battle, leaving your opponent to fight a ghost until they eventually collapsed from exhaustion. You have mastered the art of being untouchable. The echo trap is more than a social tactic. It is a philosophy of internal sovereignty. To use this framework effectively, you must understand a hard truth. You cannot create a vacuum for someone else if you are still full of your own noise. Most people fail to execute the echo trap because they are ruled by their own ego. Their ego wants to be right. Their ego wants to have the last word. Their ego is terrified of being perceived as weak or silent. To be a ghost, to be truly unmappable, you must first kill the part of yourself that craves external validation. You must become comfortable with being misunderstood. Mastery of the self means realizing that your silence is not a lack of words, but a presence of mind. When a manipulator attacks you, they are offering you a gift, the gift of their own vulnerability. If you react, you are throwing that gift away. If you remain still, you are accepting the gift and using it to study them. This requires a level of emotional discipline that most people will never achieve. It requires you to sit in the fire of an insult and not feel the heat. You must view the manipulator not as an enemy to be defeated, but as a biological specimen to be observed. When you shift from participant to observer, the emotional weight of the conflict vanishes. You are no longer in the cage with the beast, you are behind the glass, taking notes. This is the untouchable mindset. It is the realization that no one can take your reputation from you. They can only bait you into destroying it yourself. A reputation is not built by what you say about yourself. It is built by how you carry yourself when you are under pressure. By using the echo trap, you demonstrate a level of self-control that commands instinctive respect from those around you. People may not understand your silence, but they will fear your composure. They will recognize that you are a person who cannot be moved by cheap tricks or emotional outbursts. You become a fixed point in a world of chaotic noise. As you move forward, remember that power is like a shadow. The more you chase it, the further it flies away. But when you stand still, it rests at your feet. The manipulator expects a storm of words, a clash of egos, and a battle of wills. Give them none of that. Give them a void. Give them an echo. Let them shout into the silence until their own voice becomes a burden they can no longer carry. In the end, the greatest victory is not the one where you crushed your opponent, but the one where you remained so perfectly still that your opponent had no choice but to crush themselves. You are the observer. You are the ghost. You are the master of the space between the words.